Oh, he was in the train smash out at Mullumbimby. He got caught between, he was shunting a train. He was the guard, and of course he'd tell the engine driver when to back or when to go forward, and they were making up this train out there with goods carriages and passenger carriages. And one of the carriages for some reason got unhooked, and it started to get away on its own thing, so he signalled the driver to come and catch up with it, you see. And of course he ran alongside the line, and when they got back near the carriage that was the buffers come to hit, they duck in underneath there, so they're there and they can drop the chain on. And that hooks them together, you see. Well, of course, what happened, he must have been a bit slow getting between the buffers because it just whacked him like that, and they reckon he died, virtually thought they died on the spot, but it didn't turn out that way, of course. He lasted a bit longer, see.
In early 1978, a strange happening occurred in the small Australian city of Lismore. Reports started to circulate about a mysterious glowing or fiery cross in the North Lismore Pioneer Cemetery on the outskirts of the town. The cemetery had long since ceased to take new burials and had been the subject of concern to locals on more than one occasion due to its neglected state.
Yes, a member of our church congregation was sharing with me how she viewed the cross one night. It was particularly dark and she witnessed this bluish glow of the cross in the cemetery at the time, and it was quite an experience for her.
For months, the local press ran feature articles while people gathered in their hundreds at night to witness with their own eyes this strange phenomenon. They came from all over Australia as the press whipped up a storm of controversy with faith healers, physicists, religious pilgrims, and the just plain curious pouring into town. In 1978, Darcy Mcfadden was a photographer with Lismore's Northern Star newspaper. He and Alan Leighton, the Chief of Staff, now deceased, responded to a reader's letter searching for answers to the glowing cross.
Our Chief of Staff was Alan Leighton, who was a very, very experienced journalist, and he came to me quietly and said that there was a lady, an elderly lady in Magellan Street who had actually seen this cross glowing, and would we come down and she'd like to tell us about it. So that's where we finished up. We went down to speak to the lady about it, and she certainly convinced us that we should go and sort of see this glowing cross. Alan said to me, well, let's keep this very, very quiet because, so what we'll do is we'll go over there. When can we go? Well, I said, well, OK, we'll go tonight. So we finished up, we went over to the cemetery and had a bit of a look, and there was nothing to be sort of seen there. So we went down where the lady told us actually we should go to look, and after some considerable time off the road, we were sort of up and down the fence line and inside the fence, outside the fence in the paddock. My main worry was whether I was going to get bit with a snake because it's very long grass. But, we walked around there and we just thought to myself, well, we can't see anything. We'll have to go and, eventually get somebody to come and show us where it was. But as it turned out, all of a sudden, just in one little particular spot, right on this post, I was leaning on the post, there it was.
It soon emerged that some locals had been aware of the existence of the glowing cross for over 60 years, but had not made known publicly this phenomenon.
When it was moved from the grave and put into a wall with all the other headstones there because they were becoming in disrepair, vandals, etc., think with just pushing them over, so the council decided then to take all the headstones out that they could and then put them in one big wall that they thought they would have been safer, you see. And that's where the cross glowed, where everybody's seen it. It became public at that stage, you see. But before that, it was hardly ever talked about, this glowing cross business. Nobody sort of took any notice of it.
When I saw it, I would have been probably 12, something of that age. And Mum and Dad took us, we'd been out to friends one night, and on our way back we had to come back past where the cemetery was, or where the monuments are now. So we stopped, and there's 6 children in my family, so Mum and Dad got us all out of the car, and we stopped and had a look at it glowing.
The Steenson family were concerned with the possible vandalism that publicity could attract to William Steenson's resting place. Within days of its local discovery, the national media picked up the story, and television crews from Channel 7, 9 and 10 had a field day on the Cemetery Hill. The Sydney Morning Herald covered the story, as did the Sydney Mirror, the Sydney Sun and Adelaide's Daily newspaper. On the night of the 23rd of September 1907, Steenson had been the guard on a train travelling from Mullumbimby to Byron Bay. At the Mullumbimby stop, it had somehow become necessary to rearrange the order of the carriages. Attached to the train were a number of trucks loaded with cane, and whilst passing down the line, the projecting cane caught an empty cane truck that was standing on the nearby siding. Although details are few, it appears that Steenson was aboard one of these trucks when it began to move too quickly. He made an attempt to apply the truck's brakes and was successful in averting a major crash, but not before being jammed between the van and the platform. Billy Steenson was married in 1898 and had 2 sons, who ultimately produced 2 grandchildren, Neville and Thomas.
No, I'd never ever seen him. Seen his wife quite a few times, see, because he was only young when he died. See, he was only about 24 or something like that. Don't quote me on the dates, but about 24 or something like that when he died, see. Well, his wife, she was about 89, 90 when she died, see. So we had a fair bit to do with her after the son died, see.
Debate raged in the community about what made the granite cross glow. While some claimed it was reflected light, others thought it was the properties of the stone itself or even the supernatural at work.
We're Catholic upbringing, so we just, no, it wasn't supernatural or scary or anything like that to us. It was really curious and a matter of interest, I suppose, amongst the family. So
they got a message from the Bishop of Lismore even at the time, and they were trying to tell him that it might be that's something from up above, but he could have said we don't put any credence in that.
Religious matters affect people deeply, and as Christians we believe in spiritual realities and spiritual powers, both good and evil. The cross is such a powerful symbol of the Christian faith and so strongly representative of the goodness of God and his rescuing love in the message of the gospel, the good news of God's love reaching out to all humanity that is so strongly linked to the cross, that maybe people associated with spiritual powers from the other direction could have been quite upset with the impact of this glowing cross favouring the Christian faith.
Well, now the cross is a very powerful icon, particularly in Christianity. It is a fundamental symbol, particularly in the Catholic faith. And one of the events of history that has helped to give it prominence has been the conversion of the Emperor Constantine, I think in about the 4th or the 5th, I'm not sure, but it was around about the 4th century AD. It is said that he had a vision of the cross as replacing the sword, and he was promised that if he were to use this as a symbol for his armies, he would conquer. And there was a civil war in Rome at the time, and he was victorious. And it was from then on that the Christian faith became the national religion of the Roman Empire.
I don't think the churches would have put much stock in it. Normally, if there's something out of the normal, the churches go into denial anyway. That's their mode.
Initially, the Northern Star's reporter, Alan Layton, and photographer Darcy Mcfadden put the phenomenon down to the granite cross reflecting light from somewhere, while also playing up the suggestion that the supernatural may be involved. After conducting their own ineffectual experiment by shining car headlights onto the gravestones, Layton suggested that the only way to tell for sure would be to wait for a blackout on a moonless night.
Well, I was also very, very sceptical about it actually glowing, even though I was there and saw this bright cross glowing. But my firm belief is that is a reflection.
Alan Leighton didn't have long to wait. Within the week there was a blackout at approximately 1 a.m. Blackouts were a common feature of country life at this time. Nearby residents, Merv and Thomas Speeding, rushed to a viewing point and reported that there was still a glow on the cross, but not nearly as bright as when the streetlights were going.
I think it's the boy upstairs, like I told you. He's trying to tell us something.
Yes, yes.
Like I told you in the kitchen, like there's Bernadette and the Fatima, Lady of Fatima. Back in those days, they didn't have cameras and everything, did they? But people believed in it. But here today, it had cameras and had thousands of people who saw the glowing cross. So there was no foolery with it. It was definitely glowing.
Wanting to either confirm or deny a suggestion that the cross's glow may have been a hoax, the Northern Star went to the trouble of bringing in an industrial chemist to look for signs of chemical tampering with the cross. The unidentified chemist examined the cross and declared that there was no evidence of paint or other work that would cause the cross to glow.
I know a lot of people that's seen it and used to go up and have a look at it of a night, and there's a lot of stories going around, but I don't think it did. I think it's maybe a bit of phosphorus or something in the stone, or that stone, you know, there's a hell of a lot of that stone around. So, and I don't know of any other Balmoral red granite anywhere that glows.
A lecturer in geology from the Queensland Institute of Technology, Mr. William Ridley, ruffled the feathers of the rational thinking when he refused to rule out the supernatural as an explanation for the cross's glowing properties. Anything is possible, he said, particularly given the nature of Mr. Steenson's death. Although it appears he did not actually sight the cross himself, Mr. Ridley claimed that the cross wasn't composed of graphic granite, as had been previously stated. Instead, he said it was more likely to be true red granite composed of orthoclase, quartz, and probably biotite.
And I could only think of things like some form of radiation or impinging upon the cross itself that may be causing minerals to react by emitting light. But for minerals to exhibit such phenomenon usually require some external source, and there are some minerals which are very good at glowing when irradiated by ultraviolet light. But for the minerals present in this particular cross, notably orthoclase, now quartz and possibly mica, well, one is assuming from the description that it is a typical red granite. What can happen, of course, is the orthoclase with its potassium is naturally radioactive, but only to a very low degree.
Despite a strong possibility that the answer to the glowing cross mystery would lie in science, the curious and the religious continued to give godly and supernatural meaning to the headstone.
At first I wondered if there was some scientific explanation for the glow. I thought of things like reflection from passing car headlights or ambient light. Someone suggested it might be some kind of phosphorescence in the material that the cross was composed of, but I've come to the conclusion that it was a supernatural glow. And in the Bible we see a record of many miracles, really, and as Christians we believe in God's intervention in human affairs at times and on special occasions, supernaturally, where God seems to cut across the normal scientific or natural course of things.
Debate raged in the community about what made the granite cross glow. While some claimed it was reflected light, Others thought it was the properties of the stone itself or even the supernatural at work. However, no consensus emerged. The cross eventually returned to the weed-covered obscurity it had come from. In the mid-1980s, it was again rediscovered for another turn in the media spotlight. These days, the whole affair is actually a mystery within a mystery. In 1986, at the height of a period of renewed media interest, the glowing cross disappeared. What happened to the cross? There are lots of theories.
They didn't seem to carry on with the theft of the glowing cross. And it makes you wonder why. Because anything like that's so outstanding, for a cross to glow and for so many thousands of people to see it, but when it goes, nobody seems to be interested in getting it back. Why?
I remember at the time, sort of the articles in the paper said it could have been things like satanic rituals, or someone wanted it. The family just thought it was vandalism.
Well, that's the $64,000 question. Some people think it's in the bottom of the river now, but then again, everything that never gets found is in the bottom of the river.
A Sydney man financed a replica that stands among others in the same cemetery. It does not glow. So where is the original glowing cross? It has not been heard of since.
They could have worked it off, but it would still take a hell of a lot. They'd have to be more than one, maybe more than two. It's a fairly hefty big cross it is, and take a fair bit of lifting.
It'd take a few people, and we don't live far from the cemetery, but we never heard nothing. It just mysteriously disappeared.
I personally think that a group of people removed the cross with a set purpose in mind. Now, that could have been for some religious reason that they wanted to gain spiritually from possessing the cross.
We just sort of had a feeling that it might have been, down the line, friends, relatives or family that said, well, let's take it away for a while. I don't really know, but that just came to the back of my mind. I felt that way about it. It could have been so.
It's just disappointment again that the original cross was taken, that someone felt the need to vandalise a monument in such a way, and that goes for any monument that's vandalised. A cemetery should be a sacred place.
It was taken away, and we've never heard any more about it since that date, actually. And of course, the story of it now has just passed away, because I don't think this one is glowing, and as time passes on, people forget about it. Yes, it'd be interesting to know where it really went to. I think that's quite the mystery of the whole thing. But, the overseas newspapers all picked this up. And people, in England and those places, everybody was talking about the glowing cross and the stories that were about it. It was amazing. But it grabbed people's imagination. And the real story is, of course, how real it really is. Did it actually glow, or did it purely reflect?
Why didn't the base glow as the cross did? It was also polished and made from the same material. Who smeared oil on the cross in 1978 to stop it glowing? Who donated $2,000 to protect the cross with a fence? Who repaired the cross in 1984? Who was Kevin Flint, and why did he replace the cross? And where is Kevin Flint today? Who took the cross, and why did they? How did they take it? It would need at least 4 men to lift it. And what made the cross glow? While these questions go unanswered, the glowing cross at Lismore will remain one of Australia's greatest mysteries.